Uh, I am again sorry for the audio quality. I'm only using my phone. So I've had quite a few requests on making a video about the camera. So that's why we are here today. This is what's known as an Afghan box camera. There's a bunch of different types of box cameras and pinhole cameras and all that kind of stuff. What makes this a little bit different is that it's essentially a camera and also a darkroom within itself. So the idea is that you take an image on photosensitive paper and then you have trays that are inside the box and this sleeve that lets you put your arm in. So you then develop the paper that you just shot and you turn that into a negative. Then what you do is you find a way to turn that into a positive, right? So initially I thought that I would only use this with direct positive paper. If you don't know what direct positive paper is, it's essentially like darkroom paper, but it's formulated so that when you develop it, it becomes a positive. There's no sort of negative and then you have to invert it. So I made this camera keeping in mind that I thought I would only shoot direct positives, so I wouldn't have to make a boom arm, and that's also one step of the process that I eliminate. So you get your photo faster. I use less chemicals because you're only developing once. Sort of all these things that I was thinking about, and then I realized not too long ago that whenever I take a portrait of someone and I give them their photo, I end up with no negative if you were to shoot a negative that I could then reproduce. So all the photos are one-offs, and I liked quite a few of the photos that I took with this camera, and I wanted to be able to replicate them in an analog way. I wanted to revisit the fact that you create a negative first. So I made a little system, just finished it this morning, where I'm able to contact print inside the camera with a light and all that kind of stuff, which is what we'll get to a little bit later. So I'll run through the camera from the front to the back, and first I guess we'll start with the lens. I've had a few people ask me what lens it is. It's actually a Soviet Russian era lens, and it was essentially a copy of a Carl Zeiss Tessar. So yeah, it's a 300mm f4.5, and unlike most large format lenses, it's a barrel lens, so that means there's no shutter inside. So this is my 4.5 lens, and you can actually see there's a shutter mechanism here that will give you exposure time and everything. So what I've been doing is what a lot of people among the wet plate and large format community call the top hat method. You would have a photographer in his suit and he'd have a top hat, and all he would do is cover the lens and then remove it for the amount of exposure time, and then they put it back on, and that would mimic a shutter opening and closing. So what I've done is, if I can find it, where did I put it? This is essentially a stainless coffee mug. I spray painted it with quite a few coats of matte black spray paint, and then all I do is I just put it on the lens, and that's my top hat method shutter. Alright, so that's the lens. I guess now we'll turn it around. So we can see the side. As I was talking about earlier, there's a bunch of trays in there, and to keep it light tight, you have to have a sleeve. And I'm no good with a sewing machine or even just a needle and thread, so I saved myself the effort a little bit, and I found an old pair of jeans. and essentially just cut one of the legs off, stapled that to the inside of the camera, put a little bit of tape around it to clean up any light leaks and stuff. So now we have a sleeve that we can now go in and operate all our paper and our chemicals, and save yourself the effort, reuse. Also, what I decided to add was I wanted to sort of be a bit more accurate with my developing times and with my exposures. So I've got this magnetic kitchen timer that was just from the dollar store, and I put this little metal plate thing here so I can just pick it up, put it down. If I have to go out and operate the lens, I can take it with me, open, close, that kind of thing. So it's quite practical. Okay, so this is where it starts to get interesting, I guess. So I put in a contact printing system, and all that is I found this flashlight. And initially this hole had already been cut out because what I used to do is have a couple of red filters that were sort of stuck together. Then when on the inside I taped it to this hole, and with the sunlight it would sort of create a red light situation on the inside of the camera, which I could then have a look through my peephole to visually gauge the development. On the back of the camera, I've got my two switches. One is because I decided I still wanted the red light just in case. So I've got a little red LED in there which acts as my safe light, which I can still look through the peephole. So turn that on, that's the red light. Then we've got the white light, which is the contact printing light from the back. So that's the white light. And then on the back, what we've got is a little window that opens up for focusing. So we open that up and we're able to see our ground glass on the inside. Allows us to focus and set the focus and everything. So yeah, that's a little peek at the light, but we'll get into that. I'll go ahead and show you the inside of the camera. Let's open her up. I've lined the edge with a felt. I think this is a sort of felt that you use on a door. I use that all the way around. Yeah, so the main feature of this is the way I swap out between frame sizes and contact printing and all those sorts of things. I went to a framer and I told them to make me a couple of frames that hold an 8x10 piece of paper. I just swap out the sizes as I need. I was trying to figure out how to make ground glass, and I was failing a little bit. I broke, I think, 3 pieces of glass. I think I just wasn't doing it right. And essentially what I found out was if you use sort of like Scotch tape, but the Scotch tape that has this like matte kind of thing, it mimics similarly the effect that you would get on a ground glass. Just taped up the whole piece of glass and it actually works surprisingly well. If I want to, I can cut a matte for 405 or 5x7, or if you want to do a panorama, you can do a panorama. If you want to do a horizontal landscape, I just use the matte. The main drawback is that I can't shoot landscape with the full 8x10 just because the way it goes in portrait, but I don't think this is very practical as a landscape camera anyway. So essentially how it goes, obviously the lid will be closed, but I can't show you if it's closed. I put my hand in here. So I take my piece of paper out from the box that it comes in. I'll usually set it aside or to a corner or something. So we open this little guy. So that comes down. Usually I stick this in a little bit better, but it was out just earlier when I was showing you. Then after that, I get my piece of paper. This is a setting, assuming we've already set the focus and we know where we're focusing and all that kind of stuff. You feel for the glossy side because that's the emulsion side. And you want that towards the lens. So all I have to do then is just feel for the creases, stick that in there, and then push this up that way. And then we set it back to the focusing position, take the lens cap off, put it back on, make our exposure. So we make our exposure, then we just take it out from here, close that back up, and then put it into the developer. Do your developing how you usually would. I've got my little timer for that, so I know my developing times. I can also look through the little peephole so I can see. Yeah, so once your developing is done, drip it off, chuck it in the fixer. I don't use a stop bath because that's one extra tray. It works all right. I haven't had any problems really. Yeah, straight into the fixer. So I was talking about earlier about swapping frames out and all that kind of stuff. One of those reasons is so that I can shoot a variety of sizes. So this comes out, if we get rid of this, we can put a full 8x10 in its place. Just slide that back up and you've got the full 8x10 shot. And yeah, so I was talking about contact printing earlier. My frame system is actually really good to be able to swap out all sorts of things. And then I figured, why not make a contact printing frame within this size, and I can slide it back in and sort out the lighting as well. Instead of having one piece of glass, I've got two pieces of glass, and this comes down in very much the same way. For example, if you wanted to contact print, say this was my negative, I would put that this way. So imagine that this was a blank piece of paper, a fresh one. We would put that emulsion to emulsion, close the frame up. So then all we would have to do is come back here, flick on the contact printing switch, and that will shine a white light onto it for however long we need. Because it's a flashlight, it's a little bit concentrated to the center. So all I have to do is just put a little bit of diffusion on the front, and then it will create a more even light. So now I guess we get to the little electronic bit. Like I said, I pretty much salvaged this bit from like an LED flashlight that I found at a store. This is the little battery holder that powers everything. This is actually an old food container that I spray painted black. It just hides the backs of the switches over here, and it hides the horrible wiring job I did. And then if you follow this all the way up here, that's my little red LED. I'll turn that on. So it doesn't look very bright because we've got the big video light on, but essentially that's enough red light that I need. And this is just a little thing that blocks the light coming out. Well, I think that's largely it. I think moving forward, I would like to try and go for something a little bit bigger, not in the Afghan box camera style, something a little bit more traditional, with a film holder and all that kind of stuff. Now that I have a better understanding of building things and working with cameras and stuff. Yeah, I never mentioned the main reason I chose the Afghan box camera sort of format, I would say, is mainly because our ability to be very accurate. So in making a film holder that is fairly large, precision tends to be quite key, because obviously, you know, you're going to get light leaks and you're going to get all that kind of stuff. So when I was doing a bunch of research and trying to figure out, I knew I wanted to build a camera because I'd been shooting 4.5 for a while and I wanted to see what shooting something bigger would be like. Looked into a lot of different options, and then I found the box camera, and that solved a lot of my problems in terms of developing the photos, because the main issue would have been, how do I get a piece of paper or a negative or whatever in the camera, exposed, close the dark slide, and, you know, transport that either back to a little mobile processing thing or back to the dark room so I could then develop it. That was the main issue, was the film holder part of it. And essentially the box camera checked off that box, because you develop it in the camera itself. So you just bring the camera, take your photo, develop it, and you don't have to have an additional dark room, or you don't have to have an additional system to deal with that. So the box camera is a good medium. Big shout out to Lukas Birk. He's like the dad of modern day Afghan box cameras. Sort of brought the idea of the box camera into a bit more popularity. So a lot of the information about these kinds of cameras wouldn't be as easily accessible if it wasn't for Lukas. So he's got a new book out as well called Box Camera Now, I think it's called, where, you know, it's featuring a lot of photographers, contemporary photographers and artists who use box cameras, and a good friend of mine, Jeffrey, is actually in the book. Yeah, it's really cool to see a lot of people building cameras and doing stuff like this. So also thanks, I think I mentioned him earlier, Joe Van Cleave. He helped me a lot figuring out direct positives, and he's got quite a series of videos about his own box camera that he's kept working on it. The idea for the contact printing system came initially through one of his videos. Joe's awesome, you should check him out. I think that's pretty much it. If you have any more questions about the camera itself, or you feel like I missed something, I probably missed something, you know, just drop me a message on Instagram, or reply to the comments on the video that I'm in. Yeah, where to from here? I guess I still have to field test the contact printing system and sort of fine tune that. So I'm still waiting on some paper. Once I get that, I might make a video on the process itself. I really want to get into wet plate photography. So I've been trying to see if there's a way I could implement that also into here with the whole frame swapping system. Maybe I could create a wet plate holder. It's a lot. There's a lot of stuff. So yeah, if you liked the camera, if you liked the video, if you're interested in this kind of stuff, I guess subscribe. I'll be doing a couple more videos about analog photography. I'm setting up my darkroom, so I might do a couple darkroom videos, dip my toes into alternative process. This is a place for me to document all that, and then for you to follow along with me. I guess that's all.